Welcome to our video, 9 countries that could soon turn tourists away. In a world where travel is more accessible than ever, several popular destinations are facing critical challenges that may lead them to restrict tourism. From overcrowding and environmental degradation to concerns over cultural preservation and sustainability, we'll explore the pressures these countries are experiencing and the measures they might take to protect their unique identities and ecosystems. Join us as we dive into these pressing issues affecting some of the most beloved tourist hotspots on the globe. 1. Italy. Overcrowding and environmental concerns. Italy's breathtaking cities and coastlines have always drawn crowds from every corner of the globe, but now the country is reaching a breaking point. In Venice alone, tourist visits exploded to 30 million in 2024, overwhelming the city's delicate infrastructure and putting its famous canals at risk. Local officials have begun charging tourists a daily entry fee, but talk of even stricter limits is growing. Environmentalists are sounding the alarm about rising sea levels and pollution, which threaten not just Venice, but towns along the Amalfi Coast and Cinque Terre. The surge in short-term rentals is also pushing locals out, emptying neighborhoods of their character. The pressure to preserve historical sites and fragile environments is leading Italy to consider turning away even more tourists in the near future. According to UNESCO, heritage sites could soon be off limits during peak seasons. The sense of urgency is palpable as the country weighs cultural preservation against the booming tourist economy. 2. Spain. Strain on local communities. Spain's sunny beaches and vibrant cities are magnets for travelers, but the surge in visitors is causing friction with locals. In Barcelona, protests erupted in 2023 as residents complained about noise, litter, and soaring housing costs driven by short-term rentals. The city responded with tighter restrictions on vacation apartments and is now mulling caps on visitor numbers in popular districts. Ibiza faces similar problems, with party tourism straining limited water and waste resources. Reports showed tourist arrivals in Barcelona spiked by 15% last year, bringing both economic gains and mounting frustration. Some neighborhoods are so crowded that daily life has become a struggle for locals. The Spanish government is actively considering new rules that could limit access to the most overcrowded areas. According to Reuters, these measures may soon be the only way to restore balance between residents and visitors. 3. Thailand. Environmental degradation. Thailand's postcard-perfect beaches and bustling cities have made it a tourist hotspot, but the price is steep. With over 40 million visitors in 2023, the country's most beautiful spots are buckling under the strain. Maya Bay, made famous by the film The Beach, was closed for years to help its battered ecosystem recover. Now, the government is imposing visitor limits in national parks and may soon extend restrictions to other fragile regions like Koh Phi Phi and the Similan Islands. Coral reefs are dying, marine life is dwindling, and piles of waste are left behind by careless travelers. Authorities have warned that if the tide doesn't turn soon, permanent closures could follow. The Bangkok Post highlighted this urgent situation, emphasizing that protecting natural beauty is starting to outweigh the desire for tourist dollars. Sustainable tourism is no longer just a buzzword here, it's a necessity. 4. Japan. Cultural preservation. Japan has seen an unprecedented surge in tourism, with 31 million arrivals in 2023, putting pressure on centuries-old traditions and landmarks. Kyoto's quiet temples and narrow streets are now crowded with selfie-snapping tourists, disrupting local life and sacred rituals. In response, the city has restricted access to some shrines and is promoting off-the-beaten-path destinations to ease overcrowding. Locals worry that the commercialization of their heritage is diluting what makes these sites special. The government is also monitoring tourist behavior more closely, issuing guidelines for respectful conduct. The Japan Times reported that authorities may soon ban tourists from certain areas during peak seasons. As Japan's popularity grows, so does the determination to protect what makes it unique, even if it means shutting the gates to some visitors. 5. Greece. Economic strain and overcrowding. Greece's dreamy islands and ancient ruins have always been a favorite escape, but the swelling crowds are taking a toll. In 2023, over 30 million tourists flooded the country, causing chaos on islands like Santorini and Mykonos. Locals are finding it harder to afford basic goods and housing, as prices surge in tourist hotspots. There are increasing complaints about crowded beaches, traffic jams, and waste piling up in picturesque towns. The government is now considering tourist caps and stricter zoning laws to keep visitor numbers in check. Environmental worries are mounting too, with water shortages and overloaded waste systems threatening the island's future. CNN recently reported that these pressures could soon force Greece to limit tourist access for the sake of residents and the environment. The debate between economic benefit and quality of life is reaching a fever pitch. 6. Iceland. Environmental impact. Iceland's rugged beauty has become Instagram famous, and the country welcomed a record 2.5 million tourists in 2023, almost 8 times its population. This surge is straining the island's fragile ecosystems, with mossy lava fields and geothermal springs suffering from trampling and pollution. The government has responded by limiting access to popular sites like the Blue Lagoon and the Golden Circle, even proposing a new tourist tax to fund environmental restoration. Local guides often lament how crowds are changing the serenity of iconic spots. The Reykjavik Grapevine has documented local concerns about overtourism, including road congestion and strain on public services. Authorities are warning that if trends continue, more drastic measures, including closing entire regions to tourists, may be necessary. The balancing act between sharing Iceland's wonders and protecting them is becoming ever more delicate. 7. Portugal. Balancing tourism and local life. Portugal's rise as a trendy destination has been dramatic, with 27 million visitors pouring in during 2023. Lisbon and Porto are feeling the squeeze, as affordable housing for locals dries up and tourist crowds pack historic neighborhoods. Residents are increasingly vocal, demanding limits on short-term rentals and greater control over how many visitors can enter certain districts. The government is weighing new policies to protect local life, including the possibility of restricting tourist entry to popular areas during high season. The Portugal News describes how some communities feel swallowed by tourism, losing their unique charm and sense of community. There are also growing concerns about noise, litter, and the transformation of traditional neighborhoods into tourist playgrounds. Calls for sustainable tourism are gaining momentum as Portugal looks for ways to balance economic gain with quality of life. 8. Australia. Wildlife conservation. Australia's wild landscapes and rare animals have made it a bucket list destination for millions, but this fame comes at a cost. Tourist numbers hit 9 million in 2023, putting sensitive habitats like the Great Barrier Reef under immense strain. Conservationists are alarmed by coral bleaching, pollution, and the disruption of wildlife migration caused by constant human presence. The government is now considering new restrictions on visitor numbers to national parks and marine reserves, as well as higher entry fees. The Sydney Morning Herald reports that some areas could soon be closed to all but scientific researchers. There's also talk of a conservation tax to help fund protection efforts. The urgency is clear. Without bold action, some of Australia's natural wonders may never recover. 9. Maldives. Climate change and sustainability. The Maldives, with its luxurious resorts and turquoise waters, has become a symbol of paradise, but it's also ground zero for climate change. In 2023, tourist arrivals topped 1.7 million, but rising sea levels and eroding beaches are threatening the very existence of many islands. The government is actively debating limits on tourist access to the most vulnerable spots to reduce environmental stress. There's also discussion about introducing a new green tax for visitors, with funds earmarked for climate adaptation and beach restoration. The Diplomat recently highlighted the existential threat facing Maldivian communities, who fear their homes could disappear within decades. Sustainability is now the top priority, and some islands may soon become off-limits to all but essential personnel. The sense of fragility is impossible to ignore as the country weighs tourism against survival.